essay, should be involved in the attributes of substance. Now eternity appertains to the nature of substance, as I have already shown in Proposition 7. Therefore, eternity must appertain to each of the attributes, and thus all are eternal. Note, this proposition is also evident from the manner in which I demonstrated the existence of God. It is evident, I repeat, from that proof that the existence of God, like his essence, is an eternal truth. Further, in Proposition 19 of my Principles of the Cartesian Philosophy, I have proved the eternity of God in another manner, which I need not here repeat. Proposition 20. The existence of God and his essence are one and the same. Proof. God and all his attributes are eternal. That is, each of his attributes expresses existence. Therefore, the same attributes of God, which explain his eternal essence, explain at the same time his eternal existence. In other words, that which constitutes God's essence constitutes at the same time his existence. Wherefore, God's existence and God's essence are one and the same. Corollary 1. Hence it follows that God's existence, like his essence, is an eternal truth. Corollary 2. Secondly, it follows that God and all the attributes of God are unchangeable. For if they could be changed in respect to existence, they must also be able to be changed in respect to essence. That is, obviously, be changed from true to false, which is absurd. Proposition 21. All things which follow from the absolute nature of any attribute of God must always exist and be infinite. Or, in other words, are eternal and infinite through the said attribute. Proof. Conceive, if it be possible, supposing the proposition to be denied, that something in some attribute of God can follow from the absolute nature of the said attribute, and that at the same time it is finite, and has a conditioned existence or duration. For instance, the idea of God expressed in the attribute thought. Now thought, insofar as it is supposed to be an attribute of God, is necessarily in its nature infinite. But insofar as it possesses the idea of God, it is supposed finite. It cannot, however, be conceived as finite unless it be limited by thought. But it is not limited by thought itself, insofar as it has constituted the idea of God, for so far it is supposed to be finite. Therefore, it is limited by thought, insofar as it has not constituted the idea of God, which nevertheless must necessarily exist. We have now granted, therefore, thought not constituting the idea of God, and accordingly, the idea of God does not naturally follow from its nature, insofar as it is absolute thought, for it is conceived as constituting, and also as not constituting, the idea of God, which is against our hypothesis. Wherefore, if the idea of God expressed in the attribute thought, or indeed anything else in any attribute of God, for we may take any example, as the proof is of universal application, follows from the necessity of the absolute nature of the said attribute, the said thing must necessarily be infinite, which was our first point. Furthermore, a thing which thus follows from the necessity of the nature of any attribute cannot have a limited duration. For if it can, suppose the thing which follows from the necessity of the nature of some attribute to exist in some attribute of God. For instance, the idea of God expressed in the attribute thought, and let it be supposed at some time not to have existed, or to be about not to exist. Now thought being an attribute of God must necessarily exist unchanged.